So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people.
You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams.
The ambition, the aspiration, the dream.
I started my career as a prosecutor.
I was a career prosecutor for most of my career.
Having a background as a prosecutor.
I intend to create an opportunity economy.
Developing and creating an opportunity economy.
What I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy.
When you listen to Kamala Harris on what she will do, you can almost start a drinking game every time she says small businesses. Let me give you an example.
Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So I'm expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it.
Describe the politics of that.
She says that. She also talks about being a middle-class kid. That's also at the front of her answers. If you look at the interviews they've been doing with local media, and they've opened up a bit more since the debate, the first question is often, what are you going to do to lower prices? Which is a very hard question for an incumbent party to answer. And it has implications that are very Trumpian. It is, Trump says he's going to do mass deportation. That'll decrease demand. Trump says he'll explore more energy. That'll decrease energy costs. Democrats can point to the fact that inflation is actually, it was bad 2 years ago. It's not now. What people want to hear is, how do you make the prices go down? So everything she says is something realistic that could survive a fact check that answers a very hard question. There is not a plan to say that we're going to lower the cost of your grocery bill to what it was in 2019. There was a pandemic. There was a money supply inflation. You can't hit the button that makes that go away. But Trump has an answer that gets him through these questions.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I got to tell you guys. Kamala Harris is getting roasted left and right for her latest word salad interview with the National Association of Black Propagandists, okay? Even in a forum like that, where she's getting softball after softball after softball question, Kamala Harris just can't seem to hit it out of the park. She can't do it. She's had 3 or 4 interviews now. National media, local media, black media, right? Doesn't matter who she's interviewing with, she just comes off as mediocre, and she's lacking in answers, right? She's lacking in policy details. She's lacking in specifics. And now you have the liberal media and Democrats trying to make excuses for Kamala Harris. For example, people like Hillary Clinton coming out and boohoo whining, crying sexism and saying that we're holding Kamala Harris to too high of a standard, right? Because she doesn't need more policy, right? She doesn't need to prove herself. It's just sexism, right? The people that are unsure about Kamala Harris or don't want to vote for her, again, it's not because she has been responsible or partly responsible for the last 3 to 4 years of disaster under the Biden administration. And people just simply want to know, hey, what are you going to do differently, right, than what you've already been doing, okay? Because we don't like what you've already been doing. No. Okay, people can't ask that question without being accused of bigotry, okay? And unfortunately for Kamala Harris, her answers are so lacking in substance that even the CNN panel is roasting her, and her surrogates as well too, who are trying to spin propaganda on behalf of Kamala Harris and play into this idea that we're holding Kamala Harris to too high of a standard. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Black journalists today at the NABJ pressed Vice President Kamala Harris on policies from guns to the war in Gaza, but many of her answers lacked specifics, and some Democrats, like Hillary Clinton, told Kara Swisher that that's perfectly fine.
So
she does not have to do it, Kara. I'm going to just cut to the chase. In fact, she's put out policies on her campaign website. Anybody who's truly interested can go and read about them. She referenced policies. She actually doesn't just have policies and concepts. She has, plans about what to do. I think it's it's a double standard, and it's a double standard that is partly because they are still getting to know her, but also because they're still grappling with the idea like, oh, am I really going to vote for a woman to be president and commander in chief?
Wow, this is Hillary Clinton reminding the American people once again why she did not become president of the United States, right? It's stuff like this that is why the American people rejected Hillary Clinton multiple times, okay? Because she's basically saying that, well, if you expect Kamala Harris to be held to a high standard, or if you are holding her to a high standard, then you're sexist, right? This is what she said, right? It's not that you really want to hear details about what Kamala's going to do, because again, she's in office right now, under Joe Biden, but still in office. She signed off on a lot of consequential legislation. She supported the Biden agenda, right? The Build Back Worse agenda, right? That has destroyed this country. People rightfully want to know, okay, what are you going to do different? Okay. And they have to be sold on that, right? Because we experienced 4 years of you. We know what you are, right? So if you're telling us you're doing something different, you're going to have to articulate that, right? In a way that's believable. But no, right? No. You're just a sexist, right? If you hold a woman to a high standard. Amazing.
Spoken like a woman who's been there, who had a lot of policies and didn't get any credit for it.
Spoken like a sore loser, right? That is what Hillary Clinton has been for the past 8 years, okay? A sore loser.
Yeah, she did have a lot of policies. I'm not sure I agreed with her when she said that. It was interesting for her to say it because it was, I think she was talking strategically, politically, is that she doesn't have to say too much. I think probably most people agree they should say more because, as Audie Cornish of this network said, a lot of people are Kamala curious. And if you look at the statistics, I think Kirsten talked about them last night, Kristen did, that people want to know more from Kamala Harris than they do. They know Donald Trump and they don't know enough.
That's right.
Her.
I think that's part of the reason it seems like there's an unfair double standard.
Sure.
Sometimes there can be a fair double standard in the sense that people know how Trump is going to govern. At least they have quite a considerable idea because he governed for 4 years. Kamala Harris's record is only as an attorney, so it makes sense that people would want to hear more about what her plans are and that the burden might be higher for her.
I think
Kamala Harris's record is more than just being an attorney, right? Now, Coleman Hughes is correct on the first part that, yes, the reason why there's a different standard, I wouldn't even say higher standard, just a different standard, is because we already know what we're getting under Trump. We already had 4 years of Trump and he was great, right? We had 4 years of Kamala. She's terrible, right? So, yes, Kamala's being held to a different standard, but her record is not just as an attorney, but also as a senator, where she was the most liberal senator, even more liberal than Bernie Sanders, which is hard to believe. She was the most liberal senator of all time, okay? That's also a part of her record. The Biden administration has been the most liberal, progressive administration in American history. That's also a part of her record. So it's not just the fact that Trump has a great record. It's also because Kamala has a bad record. So this is why she's been held to the standard that she's been held to.
I think the political danger in doing nothing or just tossing word salads, which she did all day today and has in most of her public interactions, is that without any more specifics about what she would do, I think an assumption will be made by many voters that she'll be simply a continuation of what Joe Biden is doing. And if I were in her shoes, I would not want to carry that burden because what he has been doing is not popular. So if I were in their shoes, I'd be thinking about charting my own course. I still think she's going to have to look into a TV camera and say, he did these 2 or 3 things wrong. Here's how I would do it differently. Here's how, she keeps saying it's a new generation of leadership, but it just seems like she wants to do what Biden is doing, but just do it in a younger body. And that's not going to be enough for voters.
There's something to be said about whether or not she will have to explain what the shift is going to be, because voters are looking to see which candidate is going to be a candidate of change. To Scott's point, I do want to just play what she said today, just to give people a taste of how she answered some of these questions, particularly about the economy.
A question that has been asked of you and everybody that's on the Democratic side is whether or not voters are better off now than they were 4 years ago. Are they better off now than they were 4 years ago?
We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to COVID and obviously January 6th. And we had then a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs. over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest black unemployment rate in generations.
You know what I want her to do right when she finishes that is then say, and the next 4 years, what I will do. When she answers a question, she has to do 3 things in one answer. She has to do some biographical work. She has to say the policy that she is going to do, and she also has to draw the contrast. That's a lot to do in one answer.
But does she really have to do all that? I mean,
she does. She does.
Not all in one answer. I mean, I think there's something instructive about this, and I just want to be totally transparent because I don't want people accusing us of cutting her off. The very beginning of her answer, she thanked the audience, the NABJ, for hosting her. That is why we cut to the part where she actually answers the question. However, I mean, this is at the heart of what voters want to know about her. She should have something that is really quick and understandable. And that wasn't really it.
She has to do 3 things. I agree. Actually, there's one other thing. Answer the question.
Facts. She got to answer the question, right? She's not answering the question. And that's a question that she's been asked multiple times in multiple different interviews. Are we better off today than we were 4 years ago? Now, the way that she's been answering the question has been a load of baloney. It's been a load of crap. Okay, I did a video about this earlier. But it's just not the fact that she can't answer this question, but it's also the fact that she cannot lie to the American people with a straight face. That tells you everything you need to know about how they know. They know that the economy is not good, right? I mean, the Feds just lowered interest rates by 50 basis points today, which is a massive cut, right? That's a massive cut, which, you know, is something that they would do in an economy that is struggling, right? So Kamala and the Democrats know that the American people feel like the economy is bad, right? So they're so uncomfortable with gaslighting the American people on this, like they gaslight the American people on everything else, that she's just avoiding answering the question. But the fact that she cannot answer the question while at the same time trying to promote and tout the policies that her and Biden passed on their administration as successful, yeah, that's a problem. That's a big issue, and she's going to have a hard time getting around that, right? She's trying to have her cake and eat it too. She's trying to say that the policies were successful and that they were great, but she can't answer the question of whether or not we're better under Biden and Kamala Harris administration versus where we were 4 years ago under Trump. She can't do it.
She got the same question at the debate. And you know what else? When I went back and watched the debate again, every single policy question she got at the debate, she totally ignored and never answered it.
Well,
why is it that she believes she does not have to answer to journalists who are asking pretty basic questions of a presidential candidate?
Well, because she knows that she's not going to get pushback and the journalists aren't going to actually demand a real answer, right? They're just going to move on to the next question. So that's why she feels like she can do it. At this point, she's just doing these interviews to say that she's doing them. She's not doing them to actually answer questions or to get more information to voters. No. She's not doing that. She's just doing it to say, well, look, I did the interviews, guys, right? This is why every single interview is scripted and super softball.
Again, we started this conversation about being honest. Yeah. On September 17th, 2020, we weren't even in studios because we were in a global pandemic. People were terrified. Black people were losing their lives at COVID at higher rates than their white counterparts.
Yeah, because you had some of these people out in the streets rioting, protesting over police brutality, which, you know, hey, back then, if Republicans were doing that, if conservatives were doing stuff like that, it's a super spreader event, right? When black people do it, it's social justice. But yes, that is why you have the disparities in regards to who was getting COVID versus who was not getting COVID at certain rates.
Essential workers were on the front line, putting their life on the line every single day. Doctors had bruises on their face because we didn't have enough PPP, and family, they were being cheered out of a hospital. And that was under
Are you saying he caused the pandemic?
No, I'm saying he was the leader who mismanaged it.
How?
Because we've had this conversation before. Bleaching arms, lack of PP.
We're in
2024 now. But the question is,
you know what's so funny about this is that I just wish that one Republican, one conservative would ask these liberals and just let them answer, because I want to really hear the answer. What would Democrats have done differently? Economically, from a safety standpoint, from a trying to prevent the spread of the virus standpoint, what would they have done differently than what Republicans did and what Trump did at the time? I just want to hear one of these Democrats answer this question, okay? And just give them 3 minutes, right? 3 minutes to answer the question. I guarantee you nothing they say would have made the pandemic better because they supported every stimulus package, including the ones that we didn't need, right? Which caused inflation. They also supported the lockdowns more so than Trump and Republicans, which also contributed to inflation as well, too. There's really no evidence to prove, in my opinion, that Democrats would have done anything differently than what Trump did that would have resulted in a better outcome. In fact, I'm actually sure that it would have been worse if Democrats had complete power and control during the pandemic, because we saw what happened when they did get complete power and control. When they won the House, they had the Senate, and they had the presidency, things got worse, right? That's when inflation took off. People were still dying left and right from COVID, even despite the fact that we had the vaccines, okay? And again, we all know that the Democrats, their policies, what they wanted to do, would have put the country in a worse place, especially considering the fact that Trump gets a lot of criticism for allowing the states to be the states, right? Hey, you guys decide how you want to handle this pandemic. I'm not going to overreach, right? 10th Amendment, okay? This is what Trump said, okay? And Democrats criticize him for that. And also Republicans criticize him for that as well, too, or conservatives put it that way. Because basically, Democrats decided to shut down their economies, which hurt the country as a whole, while Republicans decided, hey, we're going to keep our economies open and running, and Democrats were boo-hoo, whining, and crying, talking about it's dangerous to be in red states, and they're spreading the virus and all this and that. But we all know that if Democrats were in power, okay, and you had a Democrats president, and they tried to shut down the whole country, inflation would have been a lot worse, okay, because they would have shut down everything, and they would have spent a whole lot more money. We would be in a whole lot more debt. And I guarantee you, they wouldn't have saved any more lives. They wouldn't have saved any more lives. That's the crazy part about it. So again, I love when these people try to frame their answer when they try to say, oh, well, 4 years ago we was in a pandemic and we were in a terrible place. As if the pandemic was Trump's fault, right? The pandemic was not Trump's fault. We were not in a bad place during the pandemic because of Trump. We were in a bad place in the pandemic because of the pandemic, right? It doesn't matter who was in office at that point. We probably still would have suffered the massive job losses and the death and the things that happened in 2020. The same things would have happened no matter who was in office. That's just what it was, because it was a global pandemic.
Hated the vaccine, left it behind.
Keep saying,
All right,
are
ladies,
you better off? Are you
stop.
better off? And I just want people to remember what 4 years ago was.
Yeah, well, 4 years ago, I think we were on a steady path towards recovery, right? If Republicans had won the Senate, okay, and Trump would have won the presidency, I personally believe we would have spent a lot less money in 2021, which would have led to less inflation. Also, on top of that, we probably would have opened up quicker, okay? We would have had more guidance from the federal government to basically kind of encourage states to open back up and to get back to normal. I think that we would be in a better situation, right? A much better situation had Trump stayed in office and Republicans won the Senate. I think we would have been in a better situation than we are now. But 4 years ago, again, we were on a steady recovery and people weren't dealing with this type of inflation, okay? And before the pandemic, we were in an even better place, right? That's the crazy part about it, right? So, you know, it's just funny to me how Kamala Harris is doing so bad that even the CNN propagandists, Abby Phillip, even she's like, yeah, that answer was bad, right? Like, she ain't really answering the question. She doesn't really have anything. Well, she doesn't, because again, she can't tell you with a straight face that we're better off today than we were 4 years ago under Trump. She can't even tell you that. She won't even try to finesse it, right? I mean, she can say, yeah, I feel like we're better off today because 4 years ago we were in a pandemic, okay? And you know, we were dealing with issues for X, Y, and Z reasons. Again, I think that it would be wrong for her to say that, but that would at least be her trying to finesse it. She ain't even trying to finesse it, right? Because this issue is an issue that has really hurt the Democrats in the sense that people are tired of the Democrats gaslighting us about the economy and the state of reality, right? They keep telling us that everything is great when everything is not great. Okay, the American people are not doing well right now. Savings rates are historically low despite interest rates being up. Okay, you also have housing unaffordable. Real wages are stagnant, if not declining, because of inflation. Yeah, I mean, GDP growth may be happening, but that's not a reflection of how the American people are actually doing. Okay, because the people who benefited the most, okay, from the Biden-Harris administration have been the rich, right? The rich and the wealthy, they're doing great because we had a whole lot of corporate socialism going on over the past few years, right? They're doing great, but the American people, not so much. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.